Dear viewers, the India under Sangh Parivar has reached a new low since 2014, when Narendra Modi came to power, is a fact that has found its best expression from rewriting of history to demonize, denigrate and ridicule the Muslim leaders. During the medieval period, Indian government has released a new 8th class social science textbook that offers a completely distorted take on Indian history. Needless to say, the Godi Media is lending its full support to the RSS agenda. Let's begin with Navika Kumar, who is much excited by this reveal of so-called historical truth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can history be changed? And no, I'm not talking about time travel or fiction. I'm talking about what gets printed in the textbooks and becomes a part of chronicles that are a reference point for generations to come. History that gets modified through ink, ideology, and institutional control, selectively narrated to suit certain agendas. Now, those politically convenient alterations are being undone. The new Class 8 Social Science textbook released by NCERT this week makes it clear. History as it was taught is history now. For example, it is almost a default thing to call Akbar the Great. No disclaimers. In the new textbook, his reign has been described as a blend of brutality and tolerance. The man whose name is etched on roads, landmarks, educational institutions, trains, the king who has an entire filmography to himself, all portraying him as a hero. Did you know he ordered the massacre of almost 30,000 civilians after the attack on Rajput fort of Chittorgarh? Or that he proudly proclaimed that his army's bloodthirsty sword erased Kafirs and destroyed temples across Hindustan? Akbar's own biographer, Abul Fazl, has quoted him as saying that he persecuted men into conformity with his faith. And what if I asked you about the jizya tax? Just a harmless tax on non-Muslims for protection, you would say. But the next generation would now know that it caused public humiliation and created financial and social incentive to convert to Islam, because that is what they will be taught from the ongoing academic session. This book, now released by the NCERT, is for use in the ongoing academic session and the first of the new NCERT books to introduce students to the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughals. It also describes Babur as a brutal and ruthless conqueror, conquering and slaughtering entire population of cities, and Aurangzeb who destroyed temples and gurudwaras while pointing to many instances of religious intolerance during this period. Clearly, for decades, what found its way.
Dear viewers, however, a highly respected historian on another TV channel has successfully decimated Navika Kumar's outburst against Emperor Akbar particularly. Let's listen to Ruchika Sharma.
To these NCERT textbooks, is this course correction trying to project an objective view of Akbar and Babur, pointing out the darker sides or darker shades of their rule?
First of all, I think there was a time when there were NCERT books which said that the term dark period or dark ages in history is a historical term. It's kind of sad to see that today that entire term has made it back to the NCERT and is being used as an objective term, as if classifying certain acts in history as dark or classifying certain periods in history as dark is a very historical thing to do. Academically, these are terms which have been completely debunked, and we've said that these are terms which are not to be used because they create this idea that somehow there are golden periods, quote unquote, and darker periods, which creates this comparison which cannot be done because there are different historical contexts for different time periods. So this comparison across time periods periods of dark and gold anyway is very ahistorical, and it's sad to see that NCRT is resorting to this. The other important point over here is that the recent changes in the NCRT 8th class textbooks, a lot of it are factually incorrect. For example, there is this particular bit where they say that the jizya was brought as a tax to incentivize the non-Muslims to convert to Islam in order to stop paying the jizya. Which primary source is the NCRT referring to? Firstly, the NCRT doesn't tell us that. But also, if it does, I would really like to file an RTI and try and understand which source, whether it's during Akbar's time, before Akbar's time, after Akbar's time, or any time in the Islamic world when jizya is first instituted or goes on being instituted. Where
Right.
is this source coming from? There is literally no primary source that says that. Then it goes on to say that
Number of emperors of medieval India were barbaric to the enemy princely states irrespective of their faith.
In order to increase the boundaries, they adopted barbaric treatment on the captured soldiers, citizens in the defeated kingdom. But so-called historical truths made no mentions of barbaric rulers such as Shola king. Let's listen to Ruchika Singh again.
Some kind of a secular ideal, glossing over perhaps some of the barbarities that were also committed in the course of his conquest.
Absolutely. There are a couple of things that Mr. Sharda mentioned that I want to respond to. Firstly, the fact that the Cholas had an uninterrupted rule from 3000 BC all the way to 1300 AD is absolutely incorrect. There were three different types of Cholas who ruled in different regions. They are not one. And each of them had probably 100. 300 BCE is not where the Cholas start. I'll just take a moment. First century AD all the way to 3rd century AD is the first time the Cholas rule. Then that's a different Cholas. Then of course there is around 5th century to 6th century AD. That's a different Cholas. And then the great Cholas come in, which come in from 9th century, which is very much taught. In fact, even the Sangam Cholas, the 1st century AD Cholas are taught. So both the Cholas are taught. But what we are not taught, and this is what I'm coming to, is for example, when the Chola rulers are attacking the Chalukya rulers, right, in around 1042 AD, they break a host of Jain temples and burn this entire town called Kolipakkai. This is something that is not mentioned, and this somehow does not for the NCRT qualify as something which is bad enough to label the Cholas as brutal rulers or as cruel rulers. However, Akbar and his siege of Chittor is reason enough in this man's 45 years of reign, one instance, to call him a brutal ruler. However, we don't apply the same standards to the Cholas. So I don't understand why there are these double standards. Also,
Ruchika,
I think
I've
it's
just got a minute.
Minya Zabud Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan. Ana Zainab Sarfraz Ahmad, Karachi, Pakistan.